Hi, I'm Nikki Lowe and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show, where I share insights and interviews that support women to combine their family, work and life in a more successful and sustainable way. Welcome to this week's episode of the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with an amazing human being. He's not only a friend of mine and a past client, but also one of life's true gentlemen. And he has a genuine passion for ensuring more women thrive in the workplace. Today's guest is Ballantyne, who's a real champion for diversity and inclusion in Europe. He combines a successful career in one of the world's most successful technology companies with his passion for diversity and inclusion. And he's one of the very few males that I've come across in my life that truly champion women in the workforce. In addition to his role in the technology sector, he's a board member for Women in Digital Empowerment and has many other voluntary roles supporting his passion for diversity and inclusion. He's married and lives with his wife and two sons in Luxembourg. And during this conversation, Brian shared with us his background, and I found it an incredibly touching story and gave a real unique insight into what fuels his passion for diversity and inclusion. And I hope you find that conversation as interesting as I did. He also shares with us his experience of working in some of the world's largest companies and what they're doing around supporting working parents and working mums in particular, and some of the ideas that they're trialling to help support working parents. And that, I think, was a really interesting insight into what some of the companies are doing. And Brian also offered a really unique perspective on how men can be helping us as working mums thrive at work and combine our work and motherhood in a more sustainable way. So I hope you find this conversation as interesting and as useful as I did. So Brian, welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show. It's a real pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks, Nikki. No, it's great to be here. I'm really, it's really kind of you to ask me to join you.
So we've known each other, I was working out earlier, for about 20 years now. We met through a mutual friend when you were working for Vodafone, if I remember rightly. And I always remember the first time we met, you were actually dressed as a crocodile. So you are forever in my mind as Brian the Crocodile. But over those
that's a funny story, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably for another time.
No, I don't mind telling you. I think Vodafone every year had this amazing party. And I think this was like the early 2000s. It had a huge party with 12,000 employees at Earl's Court. And there was always a theme. This was like a beach party. I don't know. I just went into the costume shop and then it came out with a crocodile costume for some reason. But it was really good fun. And I remember you also have a penchant for dressing up. I think you there's a certain Olivia Newton-John who even tweeted about you in one of your costumes.
Yes, that was from my hen party. I got dressed up as my heroine. Yes. Well, over those 20 years, it's been amazing to kind of track your career, and I've actually also had the pleasure of coaching you as well. So we've kind of known each other over those 20 years and kind of followed each other's career path. So it's great that we're able to kind of connect in this way for today's podcast show. But for people that don't know you, could you give an insight into who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I can talk about what I'm currently working on, and then talk maybe more about my kind of family, my background, and how I've got into inclusion and diversity. And just to be clear as well, I was talking to my wife about this last night. Hello, Kate, if you're listening. It's very clear that I'm not here to give advice to working mums. I don't tend to give advice to parents generally. Everyone kind of figures it out for themselves. So it's very much the wisdom of working mums for today. So please don't think that you've got this man on here telling you what to do. I think Gina Ford gets enough rep for not even being a parent. So having a working father on here, much underused phrase, just as a caveat before I say anything. So in terms of what I'm doing, It's interesting. Like I've been working for about 20 years, and I seem to be having more of a kind of portfolio career now. I think it's a phrase you hear sometimes. So I've got my day job at a tech company, but also I'm a board member of a group in Luxembourg where I live called Women in Digital Empowerment. It used to be called Girls in Tech, but they broke away from the franchise and they set up their own group here. It's a non-profit supporting women in tech careers, not just through kind of coding activities and things, but also women startups and entrepreneurs. So that it's a real pleasure for me to be involved in that. I'm also work with the Luxembourg Institute of Directors. I'm on a working group around board composition. So a lot of company boards are quite homogenous. They're men, they're white, they're quite old sometimes. So we're looking at getting more women onto boards and also younger board members and looking at getting more variety there. I think in the UK there's a great group called Women on Boards. If you want to sign up for it, you pay a membership fee, but then you also get regular emails with all of the board openings. They're not just non-profit. So there's a great kind of flexible work opportunity being a board member. I think that's something to explore. I'm also part of the British Chamber of Commerce. There's a group called People and Leadership, so that's something else I'm doing. But of course, I've got my day job as well, which is a majority of my time and energy and all of my salary. And so for about 20 years, I've been working in kind of marketing and product management. I did a marketing degree up at Northumbria in Newcastle, and then did like a placement year at Heinz and worked at Vodafone for a long time. I changed career a couple of times. So my career was in marketing and product management. But when I got married, it's quite interesting. My wife, she's a lawyer, a barrister, and she had the opportunity to go and work back in Luxembourg at the European Court. So I remember on the phone to her one day, I was just walking to work through the park, and she's like, I've got this great opportunity to go to Luxembourg. And I was like, great, go for it. I'll quit my job and come and follow you. And that's just what I did. So we got married, I resigned, got on a plane, went to Luxembourg. I didn't have a job for like 5 months. So that was quite interesting. She was even giving me like kind of pocket money to keep me going, but eventually found a job again. But it was in commercial finance, so not what I've been doing. And you know very well, Nikki, after 5 years in that, you gave me some excellent coaching to get me back into product management, which is really useful. But it was a good experience to work in different areas of the company. So I ended up working procurement again. We came back to London, back to Luxembourg again. And it's great to kind of work in different areas. I mean, essentially, it's all about working with people and running projects. But in the last couple of months, I've moved out of kind of marketing and product management. I think, as I said to my last manager, I've stopped caring as much about some of these revenue numbers. And I think I recognize that something that I've always been volunteering on is kind of this inclusion. So I've always been on the steering committee for our kind of company women's group, our LGBT group, our Black Employee Network. I do these things outside work, and I get a lot of passion from kind of developing people or promoting people. And so that's where I'm trying to focus my energy. My day job now is actually about getting more variety into some of our worldwide engineering teams in the company I'm in, particularly women, particularly people from all different kind of spectrums. But I'm finding that a lot of the marketing and business skills I've developed over the years are really useful in that, in terms of kind of branding and persuading and communication. So that's kind of where I am in terms of my career. And thanks very much again for all your coaching, kind of to get me back into kind of product management, probably about 5 or 10 years ago.
And it's amazing to see that the path that you've gone on, Brian. And I always speak to people about you and say, you're one of the few males that really, truly champions inclusion and diversity. And that might just be my experience of not having enough exposure to people. And I think it's fascinating, actually, what has driven you or helped you find that path. So how did you come to be a champion for diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I sometimes get surprised looks when me as a kind of straight white man, able-bodied, is involved in inclusion events and turn up to women events or even leading them. I guess I've just grown used to it over the years. And to be honest, I quite like being a minority in a group of women. I think the communication style suits me better. It's a lot more kind of collaborative rather than aggressive. So yeah, how I got into it, I think, firstly, in terms of my wife, as a barrister, she was fighting for a lot of women who'd lost their jobs. And whether they were mums, whether they were nurses, for example. And we've always talked about this at home. Maybe I was attracted to her. She's a successful, very intelligent, kind of bright woman. And we're always talking about some of the sexist interview questions that she get, like, you have children, how are you going to cope? And she replies, would you say that to a man? The lack of women on panels, for example. So for the conferences that she goes to, she's always saying, this is all men panel. You're not even asking women if they want to give a talk. and also her experiences herself in terms of her career, how it's been, you know, having children, and then how the obstacles she's faced in her career as a mother, and the struggles she's faced. So I think, you know, first and foremost, kind of my wife Kate has been, you know, really a real reason why I'm so passionate about this area. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of my background, I mean, some of this I think I'm reflecting on now in hindsight. It's probably kind of laying dormant for maybe 20 years, but it's coming out now, and it's been a good foundation for me. Yeah. So I had two mothers. So my first mother, Judy, she died when I was 6, and I think, you know, you lost your mother as well, Nikki. So you know how that can feel. Yeah. I think it was traumatic enough for me, but I think what on top of that, there was the stigma because she committed suicide, and she'd been experiencing kind of bipolar or manic depression. I mean, in fact, I was born because the doctor had said to her and my dad, like, maybe if you had a child, it might help with your manic depression. So I may not even have been here, and I was supposed to be the cure for it. So kind of, there's the stigma, there's the feeling of kind of rejection, and the guilt around that. So I think the kind of mental health, I don't know what the correct term is, and probably, but I think this is something that's being discussed more. I think it's still very stigmatized. I mean, recently Mariah Carey came out and explained that she had kind of bipolar depression. Yeah. And I think, I mean, even the princes, William and Harry, are talking about their experiences, losing their mother, and the mental health they're going through. And I think that's something that we do need to talk more about. So anyway, that's something that I think is very important, and has formed who I am. I've had a second mother, my mum, and I think mother is as mother does. So my mum, Trish, she's been my mum for 34 years. She's been like an amazing role model, and a very powerful, successful working mum with 6 children to bring up. And again, like part of that, some biologically her own, some not. And I think there is stigma around being a step parent as well, and challenges. I think also if someone is an adoptive parent or a same-sex parent, there's other challenges that you face. But I think for my mum as well, I mean, she won a sex discrimination case against the organisation she worked for. She always challenges the government on disability rights. So my youngest brother, Joseph, was born at 26 weeks. He's developed cerebral palsy, and she's always been fighting for disability rights and benefits. And he's had an awful experience kind of with the government and the tests he has to go through.
Right.
So accessibility has always been an important thing in our home, even way before kind of iPad touchscreens and things. We always had like a touchscreen on a computer at home and trackables. Many of his friends were in wheelchairs. So I think there's that accessibility side of things. Yeah. But on the gender side, I think one of the best stories I like telling is I went to an all boys school in Birmingham, and we played rugby. And one day there was a letter home from school on the school-headed newspaper letterhead. Which said, like, we'd invite girlfriends and sisters and mums to come and make teas and coffees for the dads and the lads after the games. And my mum thought this was outrageous and said,